On this episode of Cinema Disaster, we're going to be talking about the 1987 John Hughes film Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It was actually, like I said, written, directed, and produced by John Hughes. Um, and Sam, again, is sitting in by request. So, once again, what what made you want to sit down on this movie here?
Because because I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. Uh, Another John Hughes classic, and yeah, we just watched it, so it's fresh in our minds. But yeah, I really like this movie a lot.
Yeah, it's almost Thanksgiving, and this is kind of a thing. It's Thanksgiving film, so we thought we would do this. So we did Ferris Bueller's Day Off last episode, which is another John Hughes film. And this movie actually stars, well, it has cameos from a lot of actors from that film. We got Lyman Ward, who plays Ferris Bueller's dad in that movie. Edie McClure, who was Grace in the Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
She plays the
The At the St. Louis airport, the lady at the check counter or whatever, the car
right.
rental car check. I
Yeah,
think is what
yeah.
technically.
And she says in an interview that still to this day, when people meet her, they ask her to tell, or they tell her to tell them you're fucked. So I guess that's like her famous line.
Yeah.
I think that was shot. I think it was Lambert Airport, which
It
actually
would almost have to have been.
which shut down. It's not because we're from the St. Louis area, so they shut that down years ago. But I remember going to it when I was a kid. The bus station. I've been by that before too, but I don't know what street it's on. And the Burger King that they go to in St. Louis, same thing. It also Ben Stein's in this again.
Mm-hmm.
As what with the is it that
He's at the Wichita airport.
right? He's
he
like
announced that's hilarious because he gets on the thing and he says, you know, he's sad to announce that the flight is canceled, and then he smiles really
Yeah.
big. It's funny.
yeah, and he played Mr. Clark in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Michael McKean also makes a cameo as the police officer in this, and he obviously you know him from Spinal Tap. He played Lenny in Laverne and Shirley. He was also on Saturday Night Live.
He was in a cool episode, a two-parter episode of the X Files.
Oh yeah,
Also, yeah.
What was that episode?
He worked for Area 51, and because of some crazy alien kind of shit, him and David Duchovny switch bodies, and it's really funny because he basically, you know, he's just like, damn, Scully's hot, you know, and she thinks I'm Mulder, like, so he tries to like romance Scully, and Scully's like, you're being weird, Mulder, you know, it's funny, it's worth checking out. I forget the name of the episode, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. Just look up, you know.
Another cameo in this movie was Kevin Bacon, who starred actually in John Hughes' next film, which is She's Having a Baby, which is odd because Layla Robbins, who plays Steve Martin's wife in this, there's the scene where she's watching She's Having a Baby on TV, and at that time that movie had not yet been released. It wouldn't be released till the following year. Um, this was also John Hughes' first film that was like a departure from his teen angst movies that he had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like a change in style, but it still worked. It was still good.
It's hilarious. It's awesome.
It was actually, this film was originally going to be directed by Howard Deutsch, who directed Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful, which he also wrote. But when Steve Martin got cast, he decided Hughes wanted to direct it himself. But he went on and to let Howard Deutsch direct The Great Outdoors to kind of make up for it, I guess.
This is also a good movie.
Yes, yeah. Oh yes, Dylan Baker, which a lot of you know. Well, maybe you don't, because it's kind of a cult film.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Todd Solondz. This is Dylan Baker's first role. Who plays Owen, the guy that
Comes to pick him up. He's what is he? Gus? Was it
he's-
Gus's son?
yeah,
Is that it?
he
Yeah.
chews and he like
Yeah.
shakes his
They,
hand.
they have to ride in the back of the truck with the angry dog in
Yeah.
the freezing weather.
He was in Todd Solondz's film Happiness and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. In part 2 and 3, he played
I think he's in the first one too.
the one arm. What is it, Doctor
Kurt Connors.
Kurt Connors?
Who
Who
becomes the lizard. That obviously didn't happen.
it was supposed to though.
Yeah,
He's telling about
it's-
that.
It was supposed to happen in Spider-Man 4, but then due to issues, the Sam Raimi run of the Spider-Man movies got canceled, which was actually kind of a joint decision. A lot of people don't know that. It was a joint decision between the studio and Sam Raimi. They just they just decided they didn't want to work together anymore. So
But when they did the reboot, which wasn't Sam Raimi, they did the Amazing Spider-Man.
and they had the lizard.
The lizard was in it, but it wasn't Dylan Baker.
No, it was someone else.
Yeah. I don't know what else. What the fuck else do we want to talk about? Talk about. Oh yes. Talk about the ending. You said that the ending used to weird you out or something like.
Yeah, I used to think the ending was weird because it just kind of it's very open and it's kind of abrupt, you know. And I used to think that it was kind of weird that John Candy's just standing there watching Steve Martin and his wife, you know, embrace. But I think, given the context of the movie and having just watched it again, I think that that's really Dell, the character Dell, is just, you know, he's remembering what it's like to have that kind of love in your life, you know, because he hasn't, because his wife passed.
Yeah,
8
yeah.
years ago, and he's been alone and, you know, homeless, really, since then.
Which is what I was going to talk about. Is, you know, despite this being a comedy and it, you know, it has a really lighthearted feel, but it's actually a really dark film. And the underbelly of the, you know,
Yes.
underbelly of this film is really dark because John Candy's character Dell is his wife died 8 years ago, so he's obviously dealing with the grief and loss of his wife. He's been homeless for 8 years. He's a drifter. You know, like, so there's like all these, but you don't find out that.
Yeah,
obviously.
that's what I was gonna say. Is I like that that's not just presented outright. Like
Right.
I mean, you probably figure it out before Steve Martin's character does, but you kind of figure it out with him. You know, like you know.
Like his first hint is when he's like, I haven't been home in years.
Yeah, I haven't been home in years, and when they're drinking at that one motel, and Steve Martin asks him if he you know, you love your wife, don't you? And it's kind of like takes him a minute to answer, and
Yeah, he has that look on his face. You know, he has
Yeah,
like a strange look on his face.
like it's a hard thing for him to answer.
Yeah.
Oh, and he said, you know, he says to him, at the very least, bare minimum, you have a woman you love to grow old with, and that's in that scene. That's where Dell's kind of like, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't say yes. He doesn't
yeah,
agree. Like he doesn't like.
He doesn't say anything. He just
Yeah, he
nods.
just kind of nods.
He nods.
You know. What the fuck else? I don't know, man. We just watched this movie and now I can't think of anything to say.
Well, on the funny side of things, I mean, there's so many scenes in it that are hilarious to me. You know, I mean, when he asks him, Steve Martin, what's his character's name? I forget. Neil
Page.
Neil Page. When Neil asks Dell, he says, "Name one thing that annoys you about me." And Dell says, "You play with your balls too much," you know, and he's like, "I do not play with my balls." Like that's really funny. Obviously, the whole interstate car going the wrong way.
Right, which we had an experience not quite as bad as that, but in St. Louis. You want to tell them about that? This is back when we were in a band together.
Yeah, we turned down a one way. We were trying to. What were we trying to get to? I guess a place we were playing.
Yeah, we were
a
playing
club?
at a club or something. And we were trying to get there.
And we'd never been there. I don't even remember what it was. You know what I think it was?
What's that?
Did you? I don't know. I'm lost. We'll probably edit this part out. But we're trying to get to a club, and we didn't know where we were going, and GPS was being stupid. So we ended up turning down a one-way street that was pretty narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a one-way street in a big city. And we found that we were going head on. You know, in the movie, they're going towards two semi-trucks. We were going towards a horse and a carriage.
Yeah.
We turned down the street, and there's just this giant, like, Clydesdale trotting along with a carriage behind it.
Yeah, we instantly thought about that scene in the movie.
Yeah, we did.
And another thing is he used to have, well, I guess you still have it, this bass amp that had a broken handle, and it was heavy as fuck.
Yeah.
And we always had to, it took both of us to carry it on each side, and it was really awkwardly shaped. And every time, we always thought about that scene with John Candy and
it's not on there.
John Candy and Steve Martin carrying the trunk.
The trunk down the highway or whatever.
Yeah, and we had to carry it in snow and ice several times too.
Yeah.
Like that time we played in Alton, and it was icing outside. Yeah.
Those were, that was interesting.
It's fucking. I hated carrying your amp. It's so heavy.
Yeah, I hated you carrying my amp too.
Yeah. I think that this film has an underlying good moral message to it. And I think that it's got, about not judging people so fast and the importance of friends and family.
And almost like kind of how Ferris Bueller had a certain theme about like just slowing down. I feel like that's in this movie too. Steve Martin's so wound up, and he, whereas John Candy's character is more laid back and able to kind of enjoy things for what they are.
Yeah, and you said this movie's kind of like a cartoon in places also, like Ferris Bueller.
Oh yeah, like when they're going between the semis, it's even more so. Like, they shows them as skeletons. Steve Martin that's the famous scene. Steve Martin looks over and John Candy's a devil and he's laughing while they almost die. Yeah, there's a lot of comedic falls and it slips and trips.
A lot of And John Candy to me, and I don't know how everyone else feels about him, but I've always really liked John Candy ever since I was a kid. He's got like this really likable quality to him, and I think that there's some people that are liked and there are some people that are beloved, and I think John Candy is beloved. He can like make anything funny. And he can just do stuff that really wouldn't be funny, like if like the average person did it or other people did it, but just the fact that he's the one doing it, makes it humorous.
Yeah.
He just has that quality about him.
And then he can turn and do, a really like endearing sort of emotional, like, the speech he gives very early after Neil goes off on him.
Yeah,
about like you're so boring and your stories are stupid, and
And then he says that he talks too much, but he also listens too much.
Yeah.
And, that whole thing. And then at the end, like the whole like even though he's not talking, his expressions on his face and he gives like an endearing like emotional performance just. At the end of the film, when he's watching, when he's thinking about his wife, there. I guess, Yeah. And then it freezes on his face, and then you have the classic '80s "Every Time You Go Away."
Yeah, and then the song after that plays during the credits, which is like some 80s like kind of rap beat almost with just like samples from the movie.
Yeah, like all the sound clips.
Del Griffith.
You're messing with the wrong guy.
Oh man.
And then John Candy's laugh keeps
Yeah.
appearing in
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I don't know who did that song.
I don't either.
I
but
need it.
Yeah, they don't do awesome stuff like that anymore at the end of movies. Because that was really good.
Yeah, all right, well, I want to talk about one other cameo too before we go, which is Gary Riley was in this film, and he plays the guy that robs him in the hotel, and you don't get to see his face. Very, it's kind of slightly, but so most people don't notice him. But he was also in Stand By Me. He was in Back to the Future, and he's probably best known as Dave, which Shane saw his friend in the movie Summer School. Which Summer School is another great film. It's not John Hughes, but it's Carl Reiner. And as you know, Carl Reiner also directed The Jerk, which had Steve Martin in it.
That's a good one.
So that's but The Jerk, and once again, like I said, this is a different role for Steve Martin, because if you see his early films like The Jerk,
he's the goof in those.
and he's really goofy in The Jerk, Man with Two Brains, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, and all that kind of stuff. And in this, he's the straight man. He plays he's the more serious guy, even though he does do a lot of comedic things. Like John Candy's really the
yeah. The stooge.
Yeah,
I
like
don't
the
know,
stooge.
the
Whatever the term is
the
in comedy.
oaf. Or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
but once again, Steve Martin, like, he pulls it off. He can pull off the serious. Like he did. Like that movie Shop Girl. He wrote and directed and acted in Shop Girl, and that was, I mean, it was comedy, but it was a drama as well, and he pulled it off. He pulled the dramatic character off. So he's got a big range in his what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but yeah, since we were doing John Hughes movies, I thought we would do another one since this was Thanksgiving coming up. But yeah, until next time, check out Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and keep watching.